everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Failcast F1 podcast, your alternative place to get your news, views and abuse from Formula One from the dregs of society. Alongside me, Simon, as always, is Mr. Falkenberg. Oh, that's apologies, that's me coming from my own phone. There we go. Dual abuse going on there. Is Mr. Definitely Zero. How are you doing?
Hello, mate. There's a bit of dual Simon action now. I could barely handle one Simon. A second Simon would perhaps be overkill.
There's not enough room in the bed.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I've spent the last 2 weeks almost bedridden because I've basically decided that my diet needed more gout and gave myself a good handy portion of it. So yeah, there was a moment during last week where I crawled from one end of the flat to the other and just thought, you know what, I'll just lay here for the day. And so I done work just laying on the floor in my living room. And then all I had to do was like sausage roll over and turn on the PlayStation. And I was like, I could get used to this. So yeah, now I know how diabetics are when they're like, just saw off the foot. My foot, I'll have another cake. How about you?
Yeah, I don't need it. It's alarming how similar our weeks have been.
Oh no.
Because I also wasn't feeling so good last weekend, and as part of my my slow and painful recovery, I decided to treat myself to a soak in the bath, very luxurious, like a Flake advert, except with more body hair. And unfortunately, while attempting to extricate myself from the tub, when I was a teenager, I really badly injured my rotator cuff in my right shoulder, and my left's not too good either, and particularly in cold weather it gets really painful. And something just gave out, and I was sort of half in, half out of the bath, but still carrying some of my weight on my arm. My arm went, so I kind of compensated a little bit, and fell smack on my testicles on the edge of the bath. Ooh. So yeah, and I'm quite heavy now. I'm heavier than I used to be. So yeah, there was bollock pancakes for tea, and I spent quite a bit of time just laid on the floor. So that was nice. But there you go.
It sounds like you've invented a new like Takeshi's Castle round though. At the same time,
I have to say, I don't think even the Japanese would be perverse enough to televise what happened in my bathroom. But there we go, from the glorious stages of our own respective apartment floors to the glitzy world of Formula One.
Mind you, it sounds like Lance Stroll's probably then got onto the floor in replacement of us in sympathy. So,
well, you know, I mean, if Lance Stroll has to suffer so I can be well enough to do the podcast, that's a sacrifice I'm prepared to make.
I feel the world is course correcting.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, my dad hasn't bought me a Formula One team, so really it swings and roundabouts in many respects.
Do we feel that actually this is like Ben Poverty, and we should be that is where the new poverty line should be, where we look at the future? Do you have your own Formula One team? If
Daddy hasn't bought you a racing team for the purpose of hiring you, then really I think you've got a case to call Esther Ranson and Childline. Mm-hmm. This week I am on a very, very large regular Red Bull. The reason being that after this cast, I have to brave my bathroom once more, and then I'm going out to get wrecked. And I'm old, man. I'm old. I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure I can do it. So I'm front loading a lot of caffeine. The plan was, have a little bit of dinner, maybe some intelligent and polite conversation over a cheeky glass of rosé or something. But unfortunately, my friends are not that cultured, and I imagine it's just going to be getting wrecked. And it's not going to be easy because we are back under sort of a half-arsed lockdown here.
So do you have to get wrecked by 10 o'clock? Like it is
by
over
11 o'clock. By 11 o'clock. This isn't no dictatorship. 10 o'clock. It's draconian. No, everything has to close at 11 until 6 a.m. We don't want to start too late on the drinking in the morning. Because a lot of bars here are actually 24-hour. but now they open again at 6 a.m. for those who are itching for their fix. But of course, this doesn't really deal with the virus, because what happens is what I presume is going to happen tonight, which is we just load up on crates of beer from one of the off licenses and fuck off to somebody's house. But
where you're all in much more confined space. Yeah. Don't get me started. Yeah. It's got right on my titties today, and I've got plenty of tits to get on. So, yeah, not grand. Oh, we've had a couple of questions come in the chat, actually, as well, which we'll make sure we'll get to, actually. We've been asked, we'll have some thinking time on this, what features and improvements would be like in the next gen F1 game, so PlayStation 5 versions.
Oh, God, so many.
Yes. We'll circle back to that once we've done some of the F1 newsy stuff, because that'll give me time to think.
Let's go to the next event, and I'll switch over to game view.
Customizable, Jeff.
We are in the Netherlands. I'm not sure how you're feeling about that.
It's probably the right country to get absolutely sloshed on if you're going out for sloshing this evening. It'd probably headbutt some poor women on the way round. It'd be great.
Yeah. Do the old Verstappen. Yeah.
I don't mind the circuit at all. I don't think I'm particularly fast at it, though. And it's interesting because this will be it's the second circuit, actually, of the season where we are... it's a new one for us to play, so it'll be interesting to see how we stack up against each other.
Virginal, practically.
Just the tip.
Just the tip. Hello, Wodge. Welcome, mate. Good afternoon to you. I hope you're doing fantastically well. This could be the last time you see me sober, so I'm pleased you're here for the moment.
Glug glug.
Got to mark the occasion. Right, there's something... My brain doesn't really work properly because I always try and center myself in my camera, and the way that I think would center me in the camera, it doesn't center me in the camera. So 11 years and I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Talking of 11 years, actually, just before we dive in, YouTube have done a big update on the way how you can structure playlists and your channel. So I've managed to get all of the playlists from the last 11 odd years that are actually stored on YouTube, and put them all on a shelf on the High Playing Games YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and listen to us be even worse than what we are now, back in like 2012, and making like crazy suggestions like, why isn't Kamui Kobayashi champion yet, and things like that. And I can't think of other weird and wonderful ones, like can't wait for Virgin to be a midfield team or something like that. Then go and have a laugh and see how terrible we are at predicting stuff sometimes.
Do you know, there are actually some episodes in the back catalogue that are truly the reason it's called the Failcast. Particularly Monza in season 2, where I believe we both got disqualified. So yeah, there's some classics in the back catalogue. I always thought the Caterham season and the Lotus season were two of the highlights.
Yes.
So this circuit, it's grown on me. I don't dislike it as much as I thought I might when I heard it was going to be on the circuit calendar this year. The thing is, though, that I'm not terrible at it. It's just there's some corners that if I don't get the line exactly right, it spins me. Reminds me a little bit of the Indian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
With that bizarre... It's like you're in the Garden of Eden and suddenly there's a little bump in the road and it spins you 360.
The triple right-hander thing. One. Yeah.
I still have sort of war flashbacks of taking that corner in a Caterham. It was grim. But... as long as I remember to stay off the curbs, which is the golden rule in most of these games, to be honest, then I think I can make it to the end without dying, and I may even get some tasty points on the board.
Nice.
And I believe the performance patch should have made our car better.
Oh, there's been a performance patch? Oh, since a while back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
because the Renault does seem to be getting better, doesn't it?
It does. It's one of the interesting points of the season, actually. And the race.com actually put up a really nice video of has Danny Rick basically done an Alonso-style mistake to now benefit Fernando Alonso coming back in at leaving the team at the wrong time type thing. And has he chosen the wrong midfield team to jump to from, if that makes sense?
There's a yellow flag in Sector 3. I swear it's nothing to do with me.
That sounds Trumpian. I don't believe you.
But
Fake
then
news.
again, I would say that, yeah. I'm hearing there's a yellow flag in Sector 3, but it's fake news.
So, my
It's the
yellow
best
flag
sector.
is... Yeah, I was going to... That yellow flag has the best fans. Such best fans.
Don't be afraid of the yellow flag, Bigley.
Just drink down that poison for that yellow flag, yeah.
You've got quite a good impression of him, actually. I can't do impressions. I'm really bad.
I can be twat quite happily. Oh, there we go.
The problem is I'm too northern to be anything else. That's what holds me back.
Could do a good Sarah Millican.
Unless, it's all right, geezer. It just doesn't work for me. So, I believe I currently hold P1, which is a turn up for the books. I'm going to pit, though, because this doesn't half drain your battery. You can't go for a second fast lap here.
No, I'm trying it at the moment, and it's not really working.
Yeah, totally what we thought, Wodge, that Zandvoort isn't really a great F1 circuit with the nature of the bank corners, how narrow it is in places. I've got a feeling it's going to...
Sorry.
I've got a feeling it's going to turn out quite similar to how we saw Baku a few years back. Where it was just a complete clusterfuck.
But where it was just like no one could do anything and it was just a procession.
Well, yeah, but the cars kept hitting each other, like the track felt too narrow for what they were trying to do on it.
Oh, yeah. See, I guess that's where the interesting thing is that some people think that makes a good race, whereas we want actual racing as opposed to carnage. But there's something to me that makes me think that this race will end up being a bit Mugello-y, in the way that Mugello, everyone comes to it and they're like, look at the car looks amazing, it's all gradients and looking like a good old fashion circuit, and let me pull my cock out and have a good finger over it. It's just...
I've been doing this with you for 11 years, and even I was like, where the fucking hell did that come from?
Even did I when I said it.
But yeah, carry on. You've got your cock out at this point, so, might as well carry on.
Reminds me when I was... when you start babbling... Remind me one day to tell the story of when I was marched at gunpoint to Priti Patel because I'd wandered into the wrong bit of the House of Commons. Anyway, there's a bit of a trade-off at the moment of, we're getting all of these classic circuits back, but we're doing it at it's like we're almost admitting that they'll be terrible for racing, but isn't it going to look good to be back at classic circuits? And I think you can have both.
You can. I was just going to say, it's stopped now, but you should jump on board with Sergio Perez, but he's got past now. Like him and I think it was, Magnussen were constantly sort of hitting each other and causing a yellow flag, and they caught a Williams up in it, and the whole thing was very wacky. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed Mugello, but it did seem a bit of a clusterfuck, didn't it? To be honest.
I enjoyed it as a
novelty. It didn't
novelty.
make the drivers look professional.
No, I mean that whole start line pile-up was horrific, but you could have potentially had that anywhere, and I've seen that happen in F2 in Baku actually as well, where you've got ridiculous long straights and people trying to hold back and all that kind of stuff. I felt like there needs to be a bit of a compromise on it, because you don't need to have like ginormous wide circuits. Because when you go to like China, for example, I think the F1 cars look like little mini go-karts going round because the track just dwarfs the car. Whereas if you go to somewhere like Zandvoort, Mugello is another one where it was noticeable, but it wasn't too bad. It's like the cars then look too big for the track, so then it looks slightly clumsy. There needs to be like a middle ground. Like Silverstone's a good one, where the cars look appropriately sized for the appropriate track and vice versa. Maybe it's just an aesthetic thing. I'm not sure.
No. I mean, I think it's also a practical thing because, I mean, if you look at the size of, say, an early or mid 2000s F1 car versus today, I mean, it's to quote Cisco, it's redonkulous. And I honestly think that no thought was given as to how this would affect particularly street circuit racing.
Yeah.
And that's why you ended up with problems like we saw at Baku. And it's something that seems to have gotten better with time, but still, I'm not a huge fan of circuits that just invite accidents that way. Not because I don't think, you know, it's interesting to see the cars going around them. It's just, I think there's narrow and there's narrow. And while I don't want a car park style runoff area and all that stuff, by the same measure, I don't want races that are constantly under a safety car.
Yeah.
There's just no need for it. And frankly, the sport is boring enough as it is without the safety car's help. Because there's very little duller than a Mercedes-led lap 1 safety car.
That is
because,
true.
You know, like Crofty's there like, oh, what's going to happen? It's like, we all fucking know what's going to happen.
Indeed.
We all know.
Indeed. I was saying in my F1 chat with the people that I've got in F1 today, someone went, oh God, Nico Rosberg's actually making sense in commentary today. And I was like, Stockholm Syndrome! We've hit a new low! So, yeah, we need to watch out for that. But it's interesting, though, the point that you bring up about it doesn't, wide cars and things don't necessarily... there's been no fault for street races, because it seems like we're going towards let's stick as many street races or street type races on the calendar as possible, and the two don't really work in parallel, do they? So
no, yeah. I mean, you're sort of moving back to a kind of, well, I mean, you're already there actually, a sort of 70s or 80s style F1 car in a way, you know, big fat rear tyres, wide cars. But the circuits back then, with the exception of Monaco, they were circuits. They weren't someone's neighbourhood. And I think a lot of this obsession with street circuits now is the lessons of Formula E, which is it's easier to sell the event out because people can actually fucking get there. It's not in the middle of a forest between some mountains where no one lives. But you need to have cars appropriate for it, or else you're just going to end up with something very processional, or, you know, Safety Car the movie. And I don't think that's necessarily good. But I mean, the sport's in such a fucking mess at this point.
Which
I find it hard to sort of stay tuned into it at this stage.
Which is difficult when you're doing a podcast. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's, I guess, which brings us on to our main topic, although we will circle back to, I know, in some of the questions that popped in there later, and other people's as well, and I'm proud of myself, I've done a pun, Hondone-It-Again was what I gave the title of this podcast, because... just like they did in 2008, they have escaped F1, showing yet again a lack of absolute commitment to it. Probably when they're about to hit their peak again, just like they did with 2009, and what they could be potentially doing with Red Bull and Verstappen in 2021, 2022. And... yeah, it just feels like a little bit of history repeating, if we're going to Shirley Bassey it. What are you thinking? Yeah.
Well, aside from the fact that we should definitely start Shirley Basseying things more often on this show, there's the thing for me is that it's just again another indictment of the sport, right? Honda gave 2 excuses for leaving. One is a lie, which is that it's an emissions issue, which to some extent, it probably is, but I don't think that's the driving factor why they left. And the other one is, well, we've done an analysis of how much money we have to spend to catch Mercedes, and it's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
And I agree. And they aren't super stoked about the 2026 regulations. Do they want to spend all this money to patch an engine that they've got no real use for a very demanding partner team, to then transition into engine regulations that might not really be any better for them from an R&D perspective? I'd argue probably not. Now, what I thought was interesting was Renault came out and said, we're really not happy about this, and F1 isn't sustainable with only 3 engine manufacturers. We need to do something before 2026. And their suggestion is, let's bring the rule change forward. But as a team that's never truly got on top of this set of regulations, there's also a kind of ulterior motive thing going on there, I'm sure.
And they've also got the problem that as the team, as the manufacturer that does the least amount of engine supplies at the moment, they have to, by rule, pick up Red Bull and AlphaTauri. So they then have to triple their manufacturer. God knows what price they'll pay. And God, could you imagine? And I've seen it elsewhere. Drive to Survive are probably like let's get in those board meetings right now to try and get in there, because it would be awkward as F.
They what they've said is that they said it's sort of like a captain solemnly going down with his ship, because they said, well, we're prepared to do it because the rules demand it. But they didn't say they wanted to, they just said they'd be prepared to. But what I found interesting is that apparently, according to a few sources, Red Bull have approached Ferrari.
Oh.
Well,
AlphaTauri was with Ferrari, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're going to end up with half the grid being Ferrari-powered, though. And it's not exactly a great engine at the moment. It seems to be the worst, in fact. So it goes to show how messed up Red Bull is. And then, of course, there's people saying, and even Honda themselves have said, well, we're quite prepared to hand the tech over to Red Bull and have them develop the engine. And a lot of people are sort of getting excited about that in the comments on various F1 sites, forgetting that pretty much every team that's ever tried to do this has bankrupted themselves in the process, and that Red Bull has literally no commercial benefit from developing its own engines, because they're not a car manufacturer. What they're going to do by R&Ding engine tech?
Exactly. There would be more sense to it if they had a operational arm that dealt with that kind of thing, but because they don't, there is literally nothing in it unless they're going to make us drink the fucking fuel that comes out.
And then, this also ties into the fact that there was obviously a lot of talk about Sergio Perez being lined up to move to Red Bull. Since then, it seems that's not happening, but the word on the grapevine, and I actually believe this, is that Helmut Marko and Christian Horner were told by Dietrich Mateschitz that if they don't hire a driver from within the junior program will stop.
Ooh.
He's not going to pay for it anymore. And
that wouldn't surprise me.
It seems that he's quite pissed off that they've invested a lot of money in this driver program and ended up with no fucking drivers.
Maybe you shouldn't dump them all then, the twit.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Helmut Marko lose his job quite soon, actually. And I'll go on the record with that. I think he could actually lose his job fairly soon, because they're not happy with how things are going for Alex Albon, but they're being very understanding, because firstly, if they switch the drivers around again or replace him with someone they view as more competitive but who isn't a product of Red Bull, then Dietrich's going to pull the plug. So they have to sort of play along to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But then AlphaTauri are now stuck with, well, a butt plug and a Frenchman who
I was wondering which one would be the butt plug.
Well, I mean, because Gasly still seems like he has a chance at redemption somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
Although I imagine that sense will evaporate quite quickly, and he'll be in butt plug territory very soon. Quick word on Pierre Gasly, by the way. I don't know if it was him or Toro Rosso that did it, but you may have noticed that he appeared this race weekend with a silver star on the chest of his shirt, like football teams have when they win a title. And I was like, fucking calm down, mate. You won one Grand Prix. But he's like awarding himself a medal.
Aww.
So, you know, but yeah, I guess he put it on there just to remind them, like, you know, wiggly eyebrows. Guess who's won a race, boys, if you need someone to park the max. But, you know, with an engine partner pulling out, Mercedes categorically again stating we will not supply Red Bull. Would I stick around? Particularly if Max Verstappen decides to leave? Because, I mean, he's got an exit clause.
Mm-hmm.
He can leave.
Yeah.
He can definitely leave.
Absolutely. Wow, you're fast.
Yeah, I have no idea where that came from. I have no fucking idea where that came from.
Done, well done.
It's like Monaco 2 years ago where I got pole without realising. You're exactly right, Wodge. I mean, if you look at the strength of the Ferrari young driver program,
yep.
It's clear that Red Bull have missed something. And now with Honda pulling out, I wonder if this Tsunoda to AlphaTauri thing is even going to happen.
I only thought it would happen if Honda were really, really insistent, because Tsunoda is good, but Tsunoda needs another year. I'm probably now in more minority because he's now taken the lead of the F2 championship, but Mick Schumacher is still a rough diamond, and I'm not sure if he is quite ready for F1 yet either. F2 is really weird this year because it has been such a topsy-turvy season, and the people who not the people who I've rated, but that's interesting, the strategy that it's given me.
What's it given you?
It's given me softs to hards as a one-stop being quicker than doing two.
Yeah, me too. The problem is, I fucking hate the hard tyre. I think it's the work of Satan. I do not like it at all. I don't want to be on it. I don't want anything to do with it. What lap are you pitting?
It reckons 11, but sorry, I'm just having a rummage around on stints.
Because I'm thinking of pitting 12. Giving myself an extra lap on the soft, because I'm quite good on my tyres.
It don't even let me...
I mean, it's saying here as well on the two-stop that a fresh set of softs will only last 10 laps before they need to come off. I don't think I trust this system very much.
We all know how this goes.
Yeah. The problem is I got pole. I don't want to balls it up now.
To be fair, you've got a good 8/10 advantage over the rest of us. I think you might be able to pick and choose as you go.
Yeah. Wodge is giving me some race engineering support here, and I'm going to bank on his wisdom. So...
I don't know. We'll have to decide as we go. Manor just popped in the chat. Only way Ferrari can get competitive is to power all of its rivals. I quite like that. So yeah, if Red Bull come under their wing, then I'll be like... yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed something, but all the cars that have gotten faster have a very narrow nose, and all the ones that have gotten slower have a fat nose like the Ferrari. Just a Strange observation there.
Oh, Verstappen, you little shitbag.
Yeah, that's him. Arsehole.
Not having it, though. Oh, he is. Oh, what's
The usual lap 1 tension.
Yeah.
Is there a yellow? There's a yellow flag behind us.
It is me.
Have you spun?
Yeah.
Oh.
That wasn't me, though. I was pushed.
Verstappen.
Verstappen and Hamilton and someone else. So
Total
it was just a
gaggle of
cluster.
twats.
Albon, because Albon's last with me. So
Amazing. Well, now
he wants me to pit.
an early switch to hards could do you some good.
Maybe.
Go long and then maybe stick some softs on at the end. You never know, we might even get a safety car at this rate, because I've been on the verge of spinning it in qualifying more than once.
Copy that. Hards for next box.
Ba-da-da-da. Don't know where that came from. Feeling tuneful. But yeah, I mean, like, the whole situation is a real fucking mess. And also, I don't know if Renault's idea to bring the 2026 engine regs forward would even be helpful, because it doesn't really give a new entrant much time to prepare.
No. I don't know where a new entrant would come from.
No, I mean, people are talking about Porsche again, but
Why would they?
yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong, and I honestly don't know what power unit regulations F1 could do now to even be attractive to car manufacturers, because the internal combustion engine is dying a bit quicker than I think anybody predicted. Like the lifespan of hybrid tech was so short that, you know, even fairly young newcomers to the car industry like Polestar, their first car was a hybrid, and they've already got full electric out, the Polestar 2, which is cheaper and, to my eye, a bit more attractive, but, you know, that's a matter of subjective taste. Point is, like, who's actually using hybrid tech anymore?
It always, I suppose for me, the whole thing was hybrid by definition is a stepping stone to something better. So why did they ever go with it for anything longer than a very transitional stage? And then it was so expensive, I'd have thought that would have wiped it out. But then I guess this is big corp and big tech being, I mean, you see this with governments today. They're all like, what about the mining, and what about the fossil fuel mining and gas and all of that kind of stuff? And they're not prepared to stick behind renewable sources of energy and all of that kind of stuff. And for me, that puts it back into F1 being tied governmentally with old tyres and old lines, and the way how it was managed by old fogey Bernie and all of that kind of stuff back then. So they're still reeling from all of that kind of decision making back then. You would hope, he says, that perhaps things will get better over time and that they'll realign something earlier. But the problem is that they've now, if they go to electric, Formula E is already there and it's set up separately. If at the FIA, maybe they were slightly surprised by the way how it done so well, because maybe it was set up as a initiative to test bed for Formula One, and now it's done so well and has become its own thing. They can't really do that now, can they?
Well, I mean, also it's privately owned, so F1 can't even touch them.
Okay.
I think F1 thought it was too ahead of its time, and that it would go the way of A1 GP.
Oh, rip my heart. Rip my...
But it didn't, and I'm not sure what powertrain regs they could come up with to make it more attractive to manufacturers, because Formula E has everything the manufacturers need to attract them, clearly, because it already has. I could hear you having sort of a minor breakdown. What's going on?
My TV's turned itself off. Okay, we're back. We're back. I think I've lost a wing. Let me see. Right. Yeah, don't worry. Keep going.
But yeah, I mean, so needless to say, the loss of Honda really sucks. And if it leads to the loss of Red Bull and AlphaTauri as well, that sucks. And I really think it could lead to that if Verstappen takes his exit clause.
Mm-hmm.
As things stand, we'll be 20th in the
I really do. I don't know where he'd go. He could arguably rustle a seat at Mercedes up, mosey Bottas out of town. But I imagine that would be contractually difficult for Mercedes. It'd be a bit of a headache.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that Lewis would be a huge fan of it. But yeah, I guess time will tell. I tell you what, though, I wouldn't be super confident as Red Bull now that Honda are really going to put that much money and backbone into developing this power unit. And I think their gap to Mercedes is only going to grow larger. And I wonder if by the end of the season, or start of next year, if Renault don't become number 2.
Oh, what was... Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all either, if I'm honest.
We're not racing the car behind. Let them pass when you can.
What is going on with my driving today? Immediately
you
out
sound
of
like
the...
you're having a week like I did last week, where I just decided to hit everybody. It was my way of asserting dominance on the track.
Yeah. I've got to come in for my 3rd wing change.
Oh, this is retro Failcast. This is like 2011, 2012, 2013, where there literally wasn't enough front wings. The game didn't dedicate enough space to them graphically. So I remember pulling in, and there would be 2 front wings on the racks, and I'd come in. There'd be nothing on the racks. The pit crew animation would go over to the rack, and then one would sort of pop in out of nowhere because we'd already used them.
We can't sustain this level of
Oh, turkey.
Boom. I've not driven like this for years. I don't know what's going on. Never mind. Clearly my TV's throwing me off. Or I'm in such turmoil over Honda leaving. This is the problem. I
love Honda. They're my favourite engine supplier.
What do you think about them staying in Indy? Do you think that's just purely cost plus marketing because of America?
Yeah, honestly, I think it is. I think they're reasonably competitive there, and it doesn't cost that much. It's not complicated engine tech, really.
No. I agree, to be fair, but yeah.
It's, and it's a good way, with Takuma Sato doing so well, it's sort of a good way to fly the flag.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't like a bit of cheap success?
Yeah.
Cheap anything will do on a Saturday night, to be honest.
That's true.
So, yeah, messy. What else was messy was the free practice sessions at the so-called Eiffel GP. Don't know why they didn't just call it, the German Grand Prix. Just blue skying it there. But there you go. The weather was, shall we say, a tad inclement.
Bit misty.
Yeah, that deprived hero of the hour Mick Schumacher, someone who's managed to get famous without ever actually driving the car, that deprived him of his FP1 running. Likewise, Callum Ilott was down at Haas, and I guess the news was probably a lot nicer received by him because now he doesn't have to drive a Haas. So he was arguably the winner in that session. My grip has totally gone on these tyres.
That is true.
I almost had a bit of an incident there.
I did also find it interesting that people were busy tweeting at the fact that when you look at the updates of the session times at the end of FP1, for some reason they put Mick Schumacher 15th, Hamilton 16th, and there's like, first FP session and he's already ahead. Oh. I was like, the hype train stop, please. I'm sure he'll do perfectly fine when he gets into F1. I'm just not aboard the hype train of name and name alone. Maybe I'm just a stick in the mud. But
No, I'm totally with you on that, and I think it's too early. And it turns out that you may be wrong, and I may have been. You may have been right, and I may have been wrong. Clearly, there, I just didn't want to admit it. Because I thought that Raikkonen would retire, and it'd be Giovinazzi and Mick Schumacher at Alfa Romeo. Mm-hmm. Turns out, apparently, Raikkonen has chosen to exercise his option for next year.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, just retire. Just retire. He was 19th today. Just retire. He's given up. It's fine to give up.
I don't think he has given up. I just think he's left in a place now where he doesn't... Well, I shall redefine giving up. So, for me, he's in a place where he's allowed to turn up and just drive the car. But what that doesn't do is drive a car forward. And that's going to be the problem that that team's going to have in the future, in that they won't know how to sort themselves out going forward. Because if you've got someone who's just turning up and driving a car and making the best of a bucket, then how are they ever going to get themselves back up the order again?
Well, that's the thing, but I mean, the way he's been talking to his race engineer, his general attitude on circuit, I sort of thought he was done with it. But I mean, I've never viewed Kimi Raikkonen as someone who's that bothered about outward image or politics or anything. I mean, he's definitely apolitical, but I get the feeling that he somehow he can't let go, or like he's struggling to come to terms with his age. I'm just getting that feeling from him because there's just been little signals that I've picked up, like from his social media, from like the way he's gone for sort of quite provocative designs on his personalised gear, and like he's flashing his tattoos again. It just it feels a bit midlife crisisy, and I don't know. I've been predicting his retirement for fucking 5 years now, and the bastard just won't die. And I do love Kimi, but he's not doing that team or himself any favours.
No.
And what I thought was weird was that apparently it's him that's taken up the option, not Alfa Romeo. Because I could see them wanting to keep him around. I mean, I wouldn't really know why, but they seem to want to. But if this is true, then it sort of confines Giovinazzi to the scrap heap, because I don't see him going to Haas. And lately Giovinazzi's been doing. Well, he's been doing better than Raikkonen. So yeah, the whole thing's very, very confusing to me. I'm having very confused feelings on the whole matter.
I don't mind him being about. I just don't see what that does long term. I think my main, not concern so much, but there's only 20 cars on the grid. Giovinazzi is going to be again back on that pile that he struggled to get himself off of drivers who came up runner-up, I think, or was he third in the GPT season, that he was best in beforehand. Clearly talented, but is yet another driver that's going to be kicking around the weird kind of echelons of F1 and is kind of in and out before we really knew him type thing. And there's too many of it. I was just thinking of this isn't a new thing for F1. It's happened before, but because there's only 20 cars on the grid, it's even more pertinent now, I think. And when they put on, because there was no FP1 sessions, they put on the 2011 German Grand Prix, which Man has helpfully put in the chat. Apparently Hockenheim own the right to call the German Grand Prix the German Grand Prix. I didn't know that.
No, neither did I. Isn't that a very weird way to safeguard your business? But yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, great if you can get it. So the way how that all... what was I going to say? The problem that we've got is that there's drivers who are going to fall off the back. When I was watching the 2011 Grand Prix, there's 24 cars. You had people who had come up from lower formula, admittedly in the backer end teams. It makes me feel like the grid is still way too small. I've been saying that for ages. But the problem that you've got is that Raikkonen is still there, holding up a spot. And we know he's talented, we know he's good, but he's not going to be like the next world champion again. So well, I mean, get him out.
If my maths is correct, by the time his contract comes to an end, he'll be 43 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the 90s and before, that wasn't necessarily unusual. You know, you did have drivers who were driving till they were like 45, 46. But that's not the world we're in now. And given that you've got Schwartzman, Eilert, Schumacher, and that's just, you know, the Ferrari guys waiting in the wings. I just think there's an appropriate time to make way and accept that you've had your time. And I would, at the risk of infuriating the European Court of Human Rights, I would say that's probably before you're 40. You know, that's kind of hard for me to say because, you know, I'm 34 now, and it's already depressing when, you know, you watch a football game and it's like, and here comes the oldest player on the field. He's 33 years old, a walking miracle. And
how is he able to get out of bed in the morning? Oh no, yeah. I don't know.
But also, it's true, right? It is true. Before the lockdown, I mean, I work with people quite a bit younger than me because I work in like the internet field, you know, startup companies and stuff like that. And, you know, when I started, it was all people, you know, late teens, early 20s. I was like 24. Now I'm getting to be like the veteran because like most people I work with are 25 or younger. And yeah, they are just sharper. They're just hungrier. Even in something as boring as sort of middle management. There is a difference, and in sport it's just magnified vastly. And that's why you've seen the sport tilt the way it has to younger drivers, because it used to be that teams were scared to put a young inexperienced driver in an expensive car. But now, as particularly, you know, with the demise of driver aids, now it's become sort of imperative actually to find someone with the best fitness and the quickest reactions, and that's always going to be the 19-year-old with a triangular torso. That's just the way it is. And yeah, that means, you know, Raikkonen, your time's up, son. And honestly, I was depressed to see that Hamilton was talking about carrying on another 5-6 years, when I think half of the world's F1 fans are ready for him to fuck off now, just to have a change of scenery. I did admire Jackie Stewart though. Did you see this? Like, he was walking the fucking tightrope, wasn't he? He came out and said that Lewis Hamilton is not the greatest of all time.
Ooh, okay. How did that go down? Did he say who was, or did he avoid the question?
No, he was still implying that in his mind, people like Moss, Fangio, and Jim Clark, and he said, you know, I would rate Moss as one of the greatest of all times, and he never won a world championship. He said he didn't. He tried to be diplomatic. He didn't want to diminish Lewis's talents, and you know, he spent a lot of time sort of buttering him up before delivering the bombshell. But he said, you know, the advantage he has with that car, I don't think it's fair to say that he's better than someone like Sterling Moss, who just decided that he was going to drive British cars whether they were good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he was a guy who never drove for a team more than one season because he just wanted to try something new. And that, you know, you can't compare a modern championship to an old championship. And, like, win counts don't really mean anything, which I agree with him on, actually. I think even win percentages is hard to justify as a metric because...
Yeah.
Again, you know, it's very easy to artificially have a very high win percentage if you only raced at a time where a season was 8 races long. So there's always a problem trying to come up with a definitive way of deciding who is the best. My position's a bit more nuanced. I think Lewis is definitely the greatest of this generation, and I say that primarily on the basis that even though he does have an amazing car, the way he can sort of pull 5 to 8 tenths out of literally nowhere over, you know, Rosberg and Bottas, neither of whom are particularly slouches, although they both got their fair share of shit. I think that marks him out as having something special about him. Certainly, at the risk of provoking the ire of Spain, which would be another country that thinks I'm a dick, I would probably rank him higher than Alonso. And I do respect his decision to leave McLaren and go to Mercedes at a time where their success was by no means guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even though I've never been a paid-up member of the Lewis Hamilton fan club, I think purely as a fan of the sport and trying to be a fair human being, I have to kind of give him his due.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is difficult because you know, I still think to this day Jenson Button's underrated because he just didn't have the championship tally. You know, I felt Damon Hill was very underrated. He's very quickly forgotten as a world champion for some reason. Mm-hmm. I think it's very easy to forget how good Mansell could be simply because he was the world's most boring man. Rubens Barrichello, again, another fundamentally boring middle-aged man, but
Aww.
If you look at him driving, particularly for Jordan and Stewart, the guy was scintillating. So, you know, it's really hard to sort of quantify. I mean, thankfully, we already know who definitely will go down as the worst driver of all time.
Ooh.
And that would be Yuji Ide. Because you could argue about Nissany, but he only took part in practice, so I don't think that counts.
That is true. And we're talking about Chandok Nissany, not Roy Nissany.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Right, what else was in our big bag-o news? Because there's been quite a bit going on, hasn't there? Oh yeah, Nico Hülkenberg is back in pink.
Yes.
After Lance Stroll got poorly, bless his little cotton socks.
Do you think that's a cover-up of COVID? Or do you think it's COVID in waiting?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I heard quite a few people in the paddock have been tested positive.
Lots of Mercedes people actually have.
Yeah.
And because they've made a bit of a thing over it because what they're saying is that Mercedes have had to bring in and fly across new people to do pit crew work tomorrow. So let's hope that they've practiced a fair bit because that's an awful lot of pressure to have to deal with straight out the bat.
No offence to Mercedes, but let's hope that they haven't.
I'm kind of thinking the same, if I'm honest. So yeah, it'll be interesting if that all goes wrong. What happens there, because they're running quite a few pit crew members down. But it was interesting, just flipping back to the Hülkenberg Stroll thing. As soon as I said, oh, he's not well, I was like, okay, that'll be COVID then. I think it would be quite interesting if he was unwell with something else at the time. But also, what really irked me, and maybe this is just me being a moose, all of the media could see that Hülkenberg was coming and all of that kind of stuff. And they all chased him around. No social distancing with any of the camera crew. There's loads and loads of pictures of just like the media all around him, like a ginormous bubble. And I thought, I wonder just how complicit the media is in some of these COVID cases and all of that kind of stuff, because they're all just smashing around it. And Sky keep on going out of their way to show, like, oh, well, we're socially distancing in the way how we bring our broadcasts around. Yet behind the scenes, and from what I hear from people who work actually in Formula One, is that the media could not give a shit when the cameras aren't necessarily rolling. And they're in people's faces, they're breaking curfews, not curfews, like distance measures and all of that kind of stuff. And those are the people that drop in and out and do their own little things elsewhere as well. And Toto Wolff has been on record basically saying that he locks Hamilton and Bottas up in their trailers after each session, and it's like, you're not coming out for fear of them not being around. I just found it really funny, the different ways how different teams are doing it, and I've chatted to a few different teams to kind of see, like, how has it been for you lot, and some are being much more not lenient so much, but just differently handling it compared to others. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but yeah, I don't like the way how the media are trying to be all pious on one side as usual, but actually some of the fundamental rule breakers on the other side. But you'll never see that.
No, I mean, to be honest though, I mean, me and the media are not friends at the moment anyway. What I would say, though, is that that's exactly what I'd do in Toto Wolff's position. If I had a choice between Esteban Gutierrez and Stoffel Van Dorn, then I, too, would lock my drivers in a cupboard to make sure it didn't come to that.
Oh, dear.
In other news, Haas. The rumour is that Nikita Mazepin's dad wants to buy into the team, whether that's a controlling stake or otherwise. Don't really know what to make of it. I honestly, Mazepin's so far off my radar that I don't know if I should care or not. And there's been so many rumours about, you know, people buying Mercedes and so on that I don't even know if I should read into it, to be honest, but I know Haas will do anything for money. And I did have fun imagining the meeting. You know, I like to buy your team, Gene. I like you. You're a big fat man. Like a Russian potato. That's actually how I imagined it going down.
Oh, yes, please. Gene Haas just basically looking for more vodka to put on the barbecue next to him.
I mean, it's a team that, from all accounts, was quite well set up, actually, although the needless ties to Kannapolis, I don't think, help anybody. But to buy it as a going concern, if you've got the money to actually run it, it wouldn't be too bad. And you told me before we went live that he's one of the people behind SMP Racing, right? So it's actually... I
think so, yeah.
It's a credible outfit.
Yeah, or they're all kind of like that. I don't know if they're like direct owners, but they all kind of work in a circle together type thing. So don't quote me on it, just about. But yeah, Mazepin's okay as a driver. He is the Russian equivalent of what's the horrible English twat that we all love to hate because he's a bitch?
Oh God, there's so many.
The one that got banned and is now back in F2. Oh, his name's on the tip of my tongue. I hate him so much. Anyway, that one. Because Mazepin also in Euro F3 got banned for a race for beating up another driver in the pits. So, delightful chap, I'm sure. He seems to have been a bit cleverer since and takes out his stuff on the thing. Dan Tictum, thank you, Manna. It's because I call him Dan Dictum, or Dan Twattum. He's a driver
Both
that
excellent plays on his name. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much. He's a driver. If he ever gets to F1, I will literally be up in arms. He's like Santino Ferrucci, but the Chav version.
Sorry, go on. Please continue. I was just going to say, that reminds me, we need to talk about Luca, what's-his-face, throwing bits of his car.
Oh, no. Yeah, we do.
Also, I don't wish to cause alarm, but I am lapping cars.
That does not surprise me at all.
And the game, thankfully, is ghosting them because they don't get out of my fucking way.
Yeah, because I've been unlapping myself and just driving through everyone, and it's been the weirdest experience.
And I'm pretty sure we turned ghosting off, so...
it's automatic online.
Bad show, Cody's bad show.
You can't have ghosting off online for lapping. It's shit. That's something I'd change for next gen.
Oh yeah, we should also get to that as well, because that came from chat, and
Yes.
we love you guys.
Yes, we do.
And I can see my chat going in the corner of my eye, but I'm actually being successful. I'm going to win a thing. That I don't want to embarrass myself like I do every season by crashing out from the leading position, which has happened. Well, let's just say it's happened a lot. It has happened a lot, usually at Baku.
Mazepin's okay. The problem that I have with that buyout again is that it's another daddy-owned team for a driver who wouldn't necessarily be, I think, on the top of F1's radar if it wasn't for daddy in the money, which is fine because that's just how F1 works. But again, I just don't feel like you should be buying F1 teams to get your son to F1. It should be much more around sponsorship packages and in having to deal with the rest. The issue that I also have with that is that God knows what they would then do for a second driver, because I don't know. I can't really see, like, there used to be a Russian F1 team, a Russian F2 team called Russian Time. They couldn't get enough sponsorship to make an F1 car team from Russia work. Haas is struggling to make an American team with American sponsorship and all of that stuff work. We've got a Chinese F1 team kind of bouncing around looking to be made on the periphery. When are we going to learn that country-specific outfits just don't work?
No, I mean, I think people perhaps get nostalgic for the old days where they did work. I mean, like, Ligier and Larousse were essentially propped up by the French government, right? And once that went away, particularly Larousse got absolutely dildoed by the law change. Because, you know, Ligier got sort of a parachute settlement, but Larousse, they got diddled like I still get annoyed at the injustice of it, actually. Knowing what I know now about what happened with Ligier and with Renault, that Larousse were thrown to the dogs and AGS makes me very, very unhappy, but there we go.
Agree. What should we tackle?
I tell you what, why don't we answer the chat questions, because the race is coming to an end, is it not?
10 laps, yeah. What would you like
10
to see?
laps?
What we'd like to see is improvements. Oh, sorry, 8 laps for you. I think I'm 2 down. What would you like to see changed in the new next-gen F1 stuff or improvements?
Oh, quite a few things. Number one, I don't see why you can't have your driver name and flag on your overalls. Number two, I don't know why we can't have a system like the 2K sports games have, where you can scan in your face and upload your own creative design, so you could have your own helmet design. I know it's a little messy for online play, but those companies make it work. I would like to have a more comprehensive collection of classic cars and a bigger reason to use them. Perhaps a multi-season system, since they have the license for the last 10, 11 years. And I know some sponsors might have to be removed from liveries, but, you know, that's hardly the end of the world. And I'd like to see. I think this year's contract renegotiation was definitely a step forward, but I don't like that you're not proactively approached. So when it comes time to decide if you want to move teams or not, you have two options: renegotiate with current team or approach another team. It's like, why aren't they approaching me?
Mm-hmm.
They should be approaching me, because you get those questions, don't you, in the post-race interviews, like, we hear you're talking to Racing Point, and you can say whether you are or not, or make no comment. And it's like, well, what's the point of that? And apparently, if you give a nice answer, it just means it's easier, like there's a higher chance of you getting the most money out of them. But that seems like a waste of a mechanic.
Yep.
Like, have your answers in these interviews mean something, and have your on-track performance honestly mean something, and have teams, approach you. And I think that I like far better, because it was something I really enjoyed do you remember F1, was it 99 to 2002?
Oh yeah, the F1 career one that EA did. Yeah.
Yeah, where that had like a few seasons, and there was you did a pre-season test.
Mm-hmm.
And then based on that, you got offers from teams. And at the end of each season, teams would approach you based on your performance.
Yep.
Get out of my way, Haas.
Love that game. Yeah, that's interesting, actually. So I would like to see the media side of stuff really rejigged and done from the ground up. Manners put in customizable Jeff, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd also like him, if I can't have actual TV commentary, but I'm thinking back to the old PlayStation 1 and 2 games where they had Martin and Murray do the commentary over the top, and you could choose to have them instead. Loved that. If we can't have that back, then I want Jeff to be able to give me proper, in-depth race commentary as we go, so that I know who's pitting, what the race order is, or the full rundown of it is, not just who's ahead and who's behind, and much more intelligence around strategy and that kind of thing, and also much more around track evolution regarding temperature, grip, because I don't feel like I feel like racing line grip kind of turns on and off, but I don't feel like multiple lines and things like that kind of work. I don't feel like the marbles is static to the road itself of what's going on and the way how it washes away, and that kind of thing. I feel like that could all do with a massive overhaul.
I would completely agree with you. I don't wish to stop you in your flow, but I just wanted to add that they've done that already with water since 2016, right? That water realistically pools, and it does. There are places where you can properly aquaplane, and I love that. And I just presumed they'd done that as part of a lot of work on track evolution, and it seems that they haven't, because you're right, you can't really make multiple lines work. Going offline on wet tyres, they say to do it, but I don't think it actually helps. Mm-hmm. Dusting your brakes, you get a notice for that in Bahrain, but it didn't feel like it made any difference whatsoever. So it felt like maybe they had aspirations to do this stuff and just maybe ran out of time or money or something. But certainly I'd hope the PS5 and the Xbox Dingly Dong, or whatever they're calling it now, I hope they can offer the sort of power that would enable them to do that. Because the games are very solid, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
They need a lot of work.
No, they don't. They desperately need the yellow flags and blue flags and all of those kind of rules put back in again. Utterly agree with the stuff that you're saying around drivers and things like that. I would also argue that for me, it's much more around the AI, around how it, different drivers have. There needs to be much more. I'm trying to think of a posh word, but I can't. So I'm just going to go more big brain behind it, in the way how, they don't stick to the racing line necessarily, but they don't really. It's too predictable in that once you spot where the AI are told to be unpredictable, then you know that they're always going to be unpredictable there. If that makes sense. And there's scripting in the unpredictability, and I'd like it to learn over time so that you can really have a go at trying to work out what you deal with, so that they can then be like, right, well, you always are a late breaker into hairpins, so therefore we know that we should try and defend hard around there for you, to make you have to try and think of new tricks. I know the Milestone games have been trying to trial this out, and apparently, from what I read, it's not gone down very well at all, and it's not worked. But the idea is that it's supposed to learn from how your driving style is, and then the AI adapts to know where to defend and attack you. But no one's really kind of said that it actually in principle works. But I'd like to see something like that.
I'm watching a Red Bull and AlphaTauri mate with each other because they both ghosted because I'm lapping them and they're driving into each other. So there you go. I've gone a bit David Attenborough on you.
Great documentary on Netflix with him, by the way.
Yeah, what a legend. No, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's always been a problem in these games and all F1 games, really. It's very hard to make believable AI. I'm just glad that these days they can crash into each other, because if you remember in the old games, they would never crash into each other unless you intervened.
Agree.
And they were always on rails. And they still are to some extent, because if you're ever feeling vindictive, you should try and spin an AI driver. It's very hard. They can spin you super easily, and sometimes like you'll hit a driver from behind, you'll spin, and they'll just carry on like nothing's happened. That bothers me a little bit, and I wonder why they've had to do that, because clearly the AI don't play by the same rules as you in a lot of respects. I've had races in Belgium where drivers have finished the race with 0 pit stops, not been disqualified, and their tyres haven't exploded.
Yep.
I think you and I have often said that failures need to be better done.
Yes.
And more. I mean, they've been going in that way, right? Because the component where now, like, you can have damaged gearbox and end up losing gears.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's too predictable. Like changeable weather as well. I don't like how it's got better, but it's still pretty much like a switch flicks. And if you pit before that switch flicks for wet tyres, then you're going to overheat your tyres and you're going to be slow. There's no sort of window of changeover where either tyre can sort of work.
Mm-hmm. I'd also like the ability for the game to have like part of the circuit be way wetter than the other. I know they've kind of started to go down that route because you see like the rain come in on certain parts of the track and so on and so forth. But sometimes it's really, really quite noticeable, the difference between some of the stuff. Yeah, I'm not last anymore. But yeah, I'd really like it to be a little bit more unpredictable in the way how that all kind of works. And then obviously with the tyre thing crossovers, sometimes it goes really, really quickly. And I've had my AI just skip intermediates and go straight to wets. But that also then comes down to the brain of strategy as well. And I think with maybe the extra computer power, it will hopefully sort some of that out. And then just from a greedy point of view, I'd really like more non-F1 tracks or historic tracks or variants of tracks just to muck about with. And if they can, F3 with 30 cars, full field. That'd be good fun.
Oh yeah, I'd love that. What I'd also like is improvements to my team.
Yes.
Because I'm coming to the end of my second season of my team, and I'm going to win next year's championship, I think, hands down. With the weakest engine and half a factory. And I don't think you should be able to do that.
Oh, Lewis, you've just stolen my fastest laps. No, I agree.
I think I'm going to get a puncture. And I can't stop riding the curbs like a dick.
Uh-oh.
Keep managing your tyres. Manage your tyres.
Okay, please, tyre. I know I'm leaning on you quite a bit, but please don't explode.
Have you got the gap to back off?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it actually is going to make that much difference at this point because I'm approaching 70% on my front left.
That's alright, I was on 76 when I pitted.
Alright, well then, pedal to the floor then. Fuck it.
I've not had a puncture in this game until it's got to 80.
Boosh. Right, I'm
Nicely
sorry,
done.
chat. I've been very, very neglectful. Hello, Beetlejuice. How are you, mate? It's very good to see you. I'm sorry that I've not been able to
I've
have a wee chat.
Grosjean.
Oh, let me come see what you're doing.
That's alright, I'm just coming off the line now. What a fucking awful race. Never mind.
Bad luck, old sport. Bad
Boo.
luck.
I was literally abused like Dan Ticktum. Lol. If I was Dan Ticktum, that was everyone else's fault. Grr. It was though.
Beetlejuice, you're correct. I need to get you guys on the big screen and the game on the small screen. Completely true. What I'm going to do though is I'm building a new streaming setup piece by piece, and that will make all these problems go away. Who's that handsome devil on P1? Who could it possibly be? Honestly, I didn't expect that result, but here we are.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not sure. That might put me to the top of the championship. Possibly. Possible. Yeah, what else were we going to talk about? Oh, yeah, the karting incident.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that we really need to have a discussion about. So I'm sure everyone in chat has seen it, but Luca Cordoba is an Italian karting driver who had some kind of on-track incident and then picked up the front of his kart and waited at a corner for his rival to come past and threw the part at him. And things then descended into a pretty nasty punch-up. He has now come out to accept full responsibility, and he has retired permanently from motorsport, presumably before he was banned, because he had been threatened with a spanking by Felipe Massa. I want to hear your views on this, Simon, because I'm pretty fucking disgusted, to be honest with you.
If he hadn't have been banned for, in my view, that is a life ban. It wouldn't. I don't understand how you could have ever done something different. There was so much wrong with that. He was on the outside waiting, so even if he didn't have the part and was going to do like the shaky hand fist thing, idiot, because he's on the outside of a corner that where you swing out wide to then brake for the next one. So he was already in an awkward place. The throwing of the part is absolutely inexcusable. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. I just think that if that had gone horribly wrong and clumped him in the wrong way, that could have been manslaughter.
Yeah.
Potentially. And I know that might be like hyping it up somewhat.
I don't think it is. That's the thing. I don't
that could
think
have
it
gone
is.
horribly wrong. And then did you see the bit where him and his dad then went to town on the driver in the pit garage afterwards?
Yes.
Christ. Yeah, that is everything that motorsport shouldn't be. I don't care who you are, what you do. That should be instant ban. Combined all together, lifetime ban for them and the family, basically, to say you're not welcome in this sport. I appreciate, I don't know, there was something in the background around it, and that he or his dad owns the track that they were racing at.
Yeah, the track was also banned, by the way.
Great. I was going to say that might be the only awkward bit, but if the track's banned, then great. Good riddance to a lot of them. Absolutely bizarre. And I've seen a few things like this go on in lower formulae. Obviously, boys will be boys, but yeah, horrific. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can really add anything to what you've said. The whole thing was utterly shameful, and I don't know if you could ever come back from something like that. I'm always kind of reluctant to sort of permanently label someone, because we all do stupid things in the heat of the moment, but that was so unbelievably dangerous and stupid. And then it wasn't just the heat of the moment on the corner, because they got into the fight later on.
Absolutely.
That I think at that point you're done. You're done.
Because that's more predetermined, isn't it? So
yeah,
you should be able to have hold of yourself by then.
You would think so. And certainly it's not an attitude that we want to see or encourage in motorsport at all.
Do you think incidents like that have gone up since there has been... I'm going to choose my words carefully. Since there has been Vettel and Hamilton banging wheels and using their vehicle, Vettel using his vehicle as a weapon, and then going F-blinding at Charlie, and then Verstappen driving people off the track, and so on and so forth. Do you think there's been a rise in this kind of behaviour recently, or is it just that the media is much more accessible and therefore you get to see these things without ever really knowing that they were there before?
No, I think that has. I don't know if I would lay it at the door of those two drivers. I think it's a cultural thing. I don't know what's going on, but everything's become very fraught and partisan, and I don't think lockdown helps. Because everyone's been on edge, and you can, if you look at the the rioting and the violence in the streets that you've seen across Europe and North America, the way everything gets blown up now, and everything is so immediately aggressive. Exchanges on Twitter, the news, the news has started taking sides, and everyone's sort of provoking each other, and racing drivers are pretty hot-tempered anyway. The way now that you're also expected to sort of curate your social media presence, and you're constantly trying to project a version of yourself outwardly that probably isn't real. I think it all builds up in one direction, because there have always been like a subsection of people in society who cannot for an instant deal with being humbled. They don't like losing, and they definitely don't like looking stupid. And I've met a few of them in my time, and these people will blow up anyway. But now when they think they're being watched and filmed, and whatever appears on the internet will be judged forever, then there's sort of an anger that comes from a sense of losing control of that. And that's what I put down a little bit with what you saw with Max Verstappen's flares of temper, threatening to headbutt the media, or getting into a fight with Esteban Ocon. I honestly think that it's partially that he's so hotly competitive, but also it's that he sort of buys into his own hype a little bit. And I think there's a bit of that at every strata of society, in every walk, in every community. I think there's people like that, and the way that we live today kind of exacerbates it, because it used to be like, I don't know, something embarrassing happened to you at the pool. People would laugh at you, you'd go home, you'd cry into your tea, and you'd get over it. but now it's on the internet forever.
Yeah.
And some people just can't handle that. And I hate this obsession with putting cameras on things for that same reason, because 99% of America now is just people walking around filming each other and trying to start fights. I hope that at some point we all calm down and get a sense of perspective. I mean, this is why I've changed my lifestyle, to be honest. I used to consider myself very well informed. I spent a lot of time reading the news. But then this started in 2014 actually, when, people will always say, oh, the mainstream media lies, and you'd think, they're just some fringe nut job. But then they started lying about events that I was at and saw with my own eyes, and I thought, okay. And then you see that actually they're not there to deliver the news, they're there to stir the pot. And they will provoke, and they will mislead, and they will lie, and they will manipulate words and so on. I saw a great one the other day, actually. Now, it's not like I'm, walking around in a Trump 2020 hat, but do you remember a few weeks back, there was a piece in, was it the Washington Post or the New York Times, and the big headline was, Trump only paid $750 in tax. Right?
Oh, okay.
And this is like a fucking really long article. Scroll and scroll and scroll. Then down at the bottom, right at the bottom, which no one's ever going to read all the way down to, they point out that actually he overpaid millions and millions in tax the years before, and that meant he only owed $750.
Oh, okay.
But they'd spent the previous 11 paragraphs telling you that he was dodging tax.
Ugh.
Before right at the end saying, well, actually, it's not really dodging tax because he overpaid before. And it's like, well, then it's not a story. Why are you telling me this? It's not a story. Man pays tax. That should be the headline.
Does not get clicks.
No, and when people are doing that, it's going to trigger people to get very confrontational and angry. And motorsport is definitely part of that. And it's so cutthroat as well, right? To get into Formula One, look at the Red Bull driver development program. If someone costs you, say, a shot at the F2 title, the temptation to punch them in the face, whether it was an accident or not, is probably quite high anyway. But when there's no second chances, and you've maybe bankrupted your family and put your whole life's work into it, it's going to trigger a reaction. You're going to react.
Yeah, it is such high stakes. I agree.
But yeah, rant over. So we are, I am P2 in the Drivers' Championship, and you are P4.
Yes.
And we are P2 in the Constructors' Championship, but we're not far behind Mercedes now.
We aren't, which surprised me, because Vietnam I thought was going to be terrible, but we picked up a couple of points, and you held our head up high this time round, so we've clung on. We've gone from our worst season as a team, because I DNF'd pretty much every round, to our best start ever. Yeah.
Ever. So well done indeed to us. Yes, guys, thank you all so much for coming to hang out in chat. I'm sorry we've neglected you a little bit, but hopefully the conversation has been of interest. What's going on for you this week, Simon, in the next 2 weeks, I suppose?
I am doing a fair few reviews for various different games. I've been sent quite a lot for review. Some of them are very, very terrible. So I'm thinking of doing a week of terrible this week coming up, because there just seems to have been a slog of games that are all like woeful. So I'm sorry in advance for those. And then working on a few long form little mini programs that I have been scripting. How about yourself?
Going back to work. That'll be about it. I've got Monday off. I'd like to try and stream on Monday, but my health has been so up and down, and some days I'm fine, some days I have no energy at all. I will see. I've still got Grand Prix World episodes to upload as well, but I haven't got around to that. So yeah, chances are it'd be 2 more weeks of me being useless, but we shall see. Regardless, I think that we can call that a success. Thank you to everybody who has joined us live, and all the people who generally come and check in with us on the replay. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we wish you a phantasmical weekend and hope you enjoy the Eiffel Grand Prix tomorrow. we shall see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
I can't believe the Eiffel Grand Prix doesn't have the Eiffel